Hey everybody, and welcome to Coffee with the Cane. I am Pam Giganti. I'm your host today, a proud member of the Canes community, and so excited to talk to our wonderful guest today. Her name is Carolina Quijano, and she is also known as the Chocolate Empress. And that's because she owns her own chocolate factory. She is the founder of Exquisito Chocolates, and we are going to hear all about her amazing company and brand. But Carolina didn't start out that way. She was in corporate America for a while. So she's going to tell us her story, kind of like how she started at the University of Miami and what led her to making chocolates. But first of all, Carolina, how are you?
Good, and yourself?
Doing great. Now, before we begin, it is Coffee with a Cane. So do you have your cup of coffee with you?
I do have my cup of coffee.
Show me what you got. What are you drinking, my friend?
I actually have a UM special. So I'm drinking a Perla coffee, which is roasted here locally by two UM alum out in the Gables. So it's a double alum showing.
It is a double alum showing. And I have, yeah, so I have some here too. I don't have anything local. It's Pete's, but it's pretty good. It's dark. I'm a dark roast girl. I don't know about you. What do you like? Dark roast?
More of a medium.
Medium. All right. Awesome. So take us back. Let's start with your UM experience. Why did you choose to go to the University of Miami?
Yeah, so I actually have family that have gone to UM. So I grew up with UM being something always on the mindset of what a great school it was and what a great landscape it provided to be in Miami and the network that it provided and just the education in general. So when it came time to apply to college, I got into UM and I was granted an academic scholarship to go. And so it was a no-brainer and a fantastic choice.
So you studied psychology, right?
I did.
Yeah. So what were you thinking? And then I remember you told me at one point you were actually thinking of getting a PhD in business, but something changed. What? What happened?
Yeah, so I mean, my mindset was always around business. I went to UM to study psychology, but with the idea of going into organizational psychology. Got to do my honors thesis on leadership development in the workplace, and always with the idea that I would have my own business someday. Not sure what that would be. Definitely wasn't chocolate what was on the mind. And when I left UM, I was actually offered to do my PhD in the B School in organizational behavior, and opted to go more the corporate route. So I ended up working for a few years and then eventually getting my master's in org psych. But a little bit of a different path ended up coming 10 years later.
Yeah, and so that took you to New York, and you ended up working in corporate America for, you said, like about 10 years, and you traveled a lot. So tell us a little bit about that.
Correct. Yeah, so I used to travel. I was a road warrior, as they would call it. I used to do about 150,000 miles per year visiting clients, different offices around the world. I did business in about 10 different countries. And all throughout my journeys, I always took advantage and always got to, totally immerse myself in the culture, be it from the arts to the food scene. So one of the things that I, in my travels, ate was this amazing hot chocolate out in France. And it was extremely simply made, but well made, very good ingredients, something that just seemed so well made, so just delicious without having to compromise, with any artificial ingredients or anything. And I was totally enamored by that. And I became obsessed. And it was something that in the back of my mind, I was just, why don't we have something like this in the US? Why can't I buy this when I go back home?
Yeah. And so many people have those experiences that they try something, eat something, visit a place that really spurs this excitement in them. And they think, oh, I'd love to bring this back to my hometown or to the States in your case. But then the dream dies there because there's so many obstacles to overcome. So where did you go from, wow, this chocolate tastes great, why don't we have this in the States, to actually making chocolate?
Yeah, so for me, I remember on the plane ride back, I was just obsessed and kind of like doodling notes on like what can I do to recreate this at home, right? That's kind of where it started. And once I got home, I found myself tinkering around with chocolate recipes every day after work until 2 a.m. sometimes. Because once I get something going, I just really have to figure it out. So that was where I was at. I spent about a year just making a lot of terrible chocolate in my little kitchen in my studio apartment. And I finally came upon a recipe that I really loved, and I started to test it out with different friends and family. And as the true analytical corporate person, there were Excel spreadsheets for everybody to take home and give their feedback and their ratings and everything. And once I had something, I started to look around and see somebody who can manufacture this for me, and I would just distribute it. But I came upon the realization that a lot of the mass production in the US regarding chocolate is of a lesser quality, not something that could really replicate what I had there. And that's when I came upon the realization that if I wanted to have something of that quality, that I'd have to manufacture it myself.
So let's talk about, because one of the things that you love to say is bean to bar and kind of like farm to table. So talk about that, because your chocolate really is unique. It is different than a Hershey's or a Nestle, or we can't even put it in that category. It's so different.
Yeah,
so
it's almost, it's like chocolate, but it's almost like a different experience. A lot of people say when they have our stuff, wow, I've never even had chocolate before until this moment.
Oh, wow.
And what makes us really unique is anytime you guys go into a chocolate place or you eat chocolate, most of the times they buy mass-produced chocolate. Most chocolate in the world is made by 5 companies. They melt it down, make different things. No judgments here on that, but we're sort of the masochistic version of that. And so we self-produce that chocolate that most people buy in bulk. We produce that straight from the cocoa bean that we source from different farms in Latin America and the Caribbean. And what really makes it unique is that we get to control the end product of what comes. You can't really manipulate chocolate once it's done. You have to start from the bean forward. So we get to experiment and do a lot of great and cool things because we own that process from start to finish. And it also sets us apart because we have great relationships with the farmers that we work with. And that really sets us apart in terms of our ability to really highlight the transparent trade that's unique in how we do business.
Yeah, one of the things that you've told me before that I find so unique, and it really makes sense, and I feel so much more educated about chocolate, is the way you roast the cacao bean. We talked about the comparison with, say, coffee beans. So talk a little bit about that and how it really does taste different, and the roasting process in the cacao bean is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we roast all the beans in-house. We don't buy any single piece of chocolate here, which is really cool. And a lot of folks, whenever I ask them, what does chocolate taste like? The first thing that always comes to mind is bitter. Chocolate can either be bitter or it can be sweet. We do tours here, multiple tours a week, and every time I ask that question, those 2 answers are the most popular ones. And a lot of times folks don't realize that bitterness in chocolate actually comes from burnt cocoa beans. So it's sort of, think of it when you burn toast, the bread no longer tastes like bread. It just tastes burnt. And the same goes with coffee. I know with coffee mass-produced coffee tends to be over roasted, and you get those bitter notes as well. So we tend to medium roast because we control that. And what it results is in a chocolate that's not as bitter as most commercial products. So we have people who maybe are not fans of dark chocolate when they try our stuff, and their response is always, wow, this is a lot less bitter than what I'm used to having at 70% from, whatever company it is that's out there.
That's amazing. So it really has to do with the roasting. So when you're saying it has that kind of bitter, burnt taste, it's because the bean is burnt, right?
It's burnt, exactly. Yeah, and that's a result of mass production. It's sort of what ends up happening because, few companies are producing most chocolate we eat. They buy from a bunch of different places. They have to blend them together. And one of the ways to gain consistency in the process in that sort of production is that you tend to over roast so it always tastes the same. And unfortunately, you also get as a result, a chocolate that's a little bit more on the bitter side, is a little bit on the burnt side.
Yeah. We have a question right now to you from Esther Terry Augustine. Are you still making the first recipe that you liked?
I am. Better chocolate, because now I'm actually getting to make the chocolate here and experiment with different beans, but we still use that same OG recipe from back in the apartment.
I love it. Can you go into your store and get the OG recipe? Like if I went in and asked for it, or you don't really highlight it that way?
It actually is on the back of our hot chocolate. I have a little a little phrase that is my that's what started all of this.
I love that. Second question, can you share how you decided to open the chocolate factory in Little Havana? Because yeah, you are right there in the heart of Miami, if you will.
Yeah, so when I actually first started, I was just doing wholesale, and I had a tiny little commercial kitchen out in Kendall. And one of my second wholesale client was actually Azúcar ice cream down here in Little Havana. And that sort of started my relationship with coming into the neighborhood a lot. I saw what they had done for that side of Little Havana, and I just really felt like it's a central location. It still has a lot of culture. It has a lot of livelihood down here. I love that we're sort of in the middle of the Gables and Brickell, so we get a lot of folks from both sides, and it just seemed like a natural fit to be centrally located in Miami and join a bunch of other small businesses that have popped up in the area that are doing some amazing things.
Talk about the wholesale side of your business, because one of the other cool things is that you work with breweries. Tank Brewery is one of them.
Yeah.
Why is a chocolate maker working with a brewery? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we a lot of folks may have not heard of us, but you may have had our stuff. Our chocolate has been featured everywhere from La Trova to Salty Donut to Azúcar. So a bunch of places use our stuff to make their different products. What's been really cool has been that we work with a lot of different breweries, and we have a lot of beers that are made using our product because we either make chocolate for them or we roast cacao nibs for them so that they can infuse beer. Chocolate beer is very popular. And so we have a bunch of different places who love using our products to make their beer taste like chocolate. It's a win-win situation, right? Chocolate
Sounds like
and beer
it.
Together.
Two awesome things together. Why
exactly.
not? Which makes me think now of, remember the commercial that used to go, your chocolate is in my peanut butter, your peanut butter is in my chocolate, obviously for Reese's. You guys make a kind of Reese's and you make a kind of Twix. You kind of put your own spin on it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we're definitely a gourmet product, but we like to be cheeky. We love sort of not being stuffy. So the idea is that when you eat our products or when you come to our store, that you don't feel intimidated by what we make. And one of the things that we really love to do is take childhood favorites and elevate them, make them with real chocolate, sustainable chocolate. So we started doing a candy bar line where we're taking all those favorites you had as kids, Reese's, we're working on Nutella right now, Twix, and basically giving it kind of like an oomph, like a grown-up version of it. So for our Twix that we released 2 weeks ago, we just actually bake the shortbread in-house. We make the caramel in-house, and then we cover it in the chocolate that we make here. So it's from start to finish, all of our products. The same with the Reese's. We started to roast the peanuts here and make different nuts out of it, a spread, so that way we can make a Reese's that's fully fresh but also made with real chocolate.
Sounds amazing. All right, we have another question for you from Eric Chang. He says, I lived in Belgium for a year. What makes the Belgian chocolate so delicious?
Yeah, so a lot of folks always bring up Belgium and Switzerland as, the mecca of good chocolate, right? One of the things that is sort of unfortunate with food is very political, right? And a lot of laws are what dictate the quality of foods that we eat. The sort of the culture of chocolate has been prevalent in Belgium for many years, but also the laws that mandate what makes chocolate there are very high. So the standards of quality are very high, which unfortunately we don't have the same standards here, let's say in the US. So the quality of chocolate that we are forced to produce here by law has less requirements than, let's say, one in Belgium. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So that's why it's a combination of the culture of just having, 150 years of that culture of, we make great chocolate, but also just having, legal requirements that say that they have to make chocolate has to have X amount of cacao. Like in the US, it's something like 15% of cacao in a chocolate bar will constitute a chocolate, being legally called chocolate, whereas in Europe the standard is much higher. So that's why we get a lot of those differences in flavors and sweetness.
We have another question for you from Bridget. She says, can you share the story of the photo behind you? Yeah, very cool picture behind you. Tell us about it.
So I took that picture myself a few years ago. I personally visit all of the farms that we work with, have relationships with the farmers via WhatsApp. They keep me informed on what's going on. This particular picture was taken in La Chua in Guatemala. It's a central area in the country, and it's actually the co-op that produces this cacao lives around a natural reserve, and they really pride themselves on taking care of the nature around them. So that's actually in one of their fermentation centers that they built, and it's one of the head farmers, inspecting his cacao during one of our visits.
Talk about some of the farms, like where I know you go to Ecuador, right? And Peru.
Yes.
Talk about where you go, which countries you are doing business with, which farmers
so
from these countries.
Currently, we source from 7 different farms throughout Latin America and the Caribbean. I just got word today that we got new samples from a farm in Haiti that we're working with. We work with the neighboring DR. Colombia has been an addition. We just added 2 new origins from Colombia, which I'm very excited about. That's been our new release. Peru, Ecuador, Guatemala is a big one that we work with. We brought from Mexico last year, and what we do is we sort of treat it like wine, and we like to honor the terroir of each farm and what each farmer brings to it, and we make single origin batches of each, and the difference in flavors is just incredible from one country and one farm to the next.
Yeah, describe some of those. Like, let's say I was getting a chocolate bar from this farm in Haiti that you were just talking about. What kind of flavor palette should I expect from that chocolate?
Yeah, so that particular cacao that we bring from Haiti has a very like earthy flavor to it. It's almost like a peppery flavor. And then let's say we have a farm in DR that we work with, neighboring, same islands, not too far away from each other, and yet the cacao is extremely fruity. You get almost like these red fruit flavors, very bright, extremely different. You have people who absolutely love the Haiti one, and then people who don't like it, and then vice versa. So the idea is that there's a chocolate for every person, just like there's a coffee or wine or apple for every person. The same is true with chocolate. We really try to highlight that.
Yeah. Talk to us and educate us about being a chocolatier and being a chocolate maker. There's a difference.
There is. So chocolatier is anybody who makes chocolates. So your bonbons, your truffles, all your confections, that's your bulk of chocolate shops. And then your chocolate maker is your masochistic chocolatier. It's that person who, buys the cacao beans, we roast, we grind. We spend on average 4 to 7 days making chocolate before we can make any sort of confections that a chocolatier would make.
So talk to us about the challenges you've had to face right now during the COVID-19 pandemic, because you have employees, you have people who work in a kitchen, you have to deal with these farmers abroad, you can't travel like you used to. So kind of lay out for us what the challenge has been.
Yeah, there's been a few different types of challenges. I was set to go out to Haiti end of March, and obviously, unfortunately, wasn't able to. We're in the middle of the harvest season, so I keep hearing from a lot of places where the fruit is just sitting on the trees waiting to be picked, and farmers are, there's curfews. In some places, they're only allowing people to go out if they have licenses, and those licenses haven't come yet. So you do, you hear a lot of those types of things in terms of what the crop what type of interruptions there'll be. I think that will be, come summer, we'll know what the impact will be in terms of supplies and everything. But that's been a very difficult one. I was supposed to go out and do an evaluation of a cacao to see the quality of where it was at, to help the farmers continue to improve on their growing practices. Fortunately, we were able to fly some in, so I could still do the evaluation from here. So I just got word today on that. I'm very happy, so it doesn't, impede on their progress. But it's the new reality we're living at, where we have to kind of pivot and figure it out. Yeah. For us, we're still making chocolate. We've staggered schedules, and we're working a little bit slower than we're used to, just because for everyone's safety. And the biggest thing for us, since around, beginning of March, just supply chain interruptions have been difficult. Getting simple ingredients and sometimes be very, very difficult. We've now pivoted to shipping. So 99% of our business totally pivoted to online sales. And, simple things like getting shipping supplies. Everybody's out shipping, so we're competing with a lot of folks who are trying to do the same thing, and that's been, a challenge.
Yeah, so most of your business would say, rather than the storefront part, is shipping, right? And then and then the wholesaling, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we do a lot of tours here, actually, educational tours. So we get a lot of tourists and different folks who want to come and see what we do and learn. Education's a big part of my mission here at the business. But what's been very interesting is seeing how many people really need chocolate when they're at home. So we've completely pivoted to meet those needs and those demands.
How do people find you? So somebody's watching right now and they say, I want to order chocolate from Exquisito Chocolates. How do they go about doing that?
Yeah, so you can go to exquisitochocolates.com. Our full menu is on there. If you are local, you can actually order on there and have it held at the store, and we do curbside pickup. We also are doing delivery through a third party right on our website. And then we also ship nationwide, everywhere from going this week from Puerto Rico all the way to Alaska. So all over.
All over. So another question right now from Christy Wolf. How does your roasting process enhance or possibly change the flavors you described from these different regions? Talk about that again.
Yeah, so we experiment a lot with roasting. One of the cool things that we get to manipulate is in that roasting process, you can roast a cacao bean 1,000 different ways, and that end chocolate will taste 1,000 different ways as well. So in the very beginning, there's no one set recipe. You sort of just have to test and test and test until you get to a flavor profile that you really enjoy. You can under roast something, and then the flavors end up maybe being too acidic, or you end up getting a different type of flavor profile. Maybe you want to ramp up the roasting a little bit more, and you'll find that some of that acidity evaporates, and maybe it's not as strong. So there's a lot of different things. Sometimes it's subjective. It's it's a matter of what do we find is the chocolate that we're trying to achieve at the end. So at the very beginning, when we start working with a new farm, we will roast many times before we actually find that end recipe of what we'll roast going forward.
I know that you were not in the food business, or it's not in your family, no connection to the food industry before you decided to get into being a chocolate maker. So what kind of challenges has that presented for you, kind of leaping into a field that you really didn't have knowledge of beforehand?
Yeah, it's been definitely very challenging. I mean, the good thing for me was I came from a business background, so I approached it from that know-how. So that's been very helpful. But it's a different industry. I never worked in, never even did consulting in any sort of companies relating with hospitality or food or beverage. So it's been a learning challenge. It's almost like getting a second master's degree in food. You just learn as you go along. That's been my mantra. And my thing is always, you make mistakes, but as long as you learn from them, that's the best you can do. And you just, continue to grow. So yeah, simple things like, inventory management and just figuring out how different the industry is and how people speak and everything has been a lovely challenge that I've taken on.
Another question here. Tell us how your education, being part of the community, has helped you as a small business owner.
Yeah, I mean, I did org psych at and business was always something that was at my mindset when I was there. So taking that, especially the lessons from organizational behavior, was very useful, and especially how I manage staff. So my focus was always around leadership development and just managing teams. So that's something that I really have taken to heart of how I treat and manage my own staff.
Yeah. What things stick out in your mind that perhaps if you could go back in time, you would do differently?
Ooh, in terms of at or?
With Exquisito chocolates, is there anything, like you said, you've learned a lot of things along the way? Is there something maybe you said, oh, if I had only known that, I would have done X, Y, and Z?
Well, how much time do you have? For me, anytime people ask me something like that, I always say, every day is something new that I learn and an opportunity to do better, right? Like that's always my thing. I know every day I pinpoint something, I'm like, that could be done better and this can be done better. And it's like a growing day by day thing of how do you improve on that. So it's an ever evolving thing for me. I think the biggest from what starting out was it was going to take longer and it was going to be more expensive to do. That's always, I think, the biggest thing that I've learned from this.
Yeah. And then going back to have you been engaged more and more with the community, especially now being a businesswoman? Clearly your acumen and your knowledge and your expertise is something that business students would certainly love to hear about and admire, frankly.
Oh, thank you. I try to stay plugged in with as much as I can. I think what it has especially been useful has been connecting with other alums who are also in the food business, and I keep running into folks. I think actually a few weeks ago you guys did a Cane's coffee chat with a few breweries that we actually work with that are alum as well. So it's nice to see all those intersections within the industry, and just trying to support other based businesses has been a really cool thing to see, and to also be a recipient of.
And what would your advice be to somebody who's watching right now, perhaps who's thought about launching into a different career or starting a different business? What would your advice be?
Yeah, I think planning is very important. Like I said, it'll take a longer time that you expect always and that you budget for. I've heard from a lot of people who say during this time when things might be a little bit slower for work or for projects, it's a good time to maybe investigate, research what is it that you want to go into, what would be some good first steps, and trying to dip your feet. And it's always great to reach out to folks who are already in that industry and maybe shadow, maybe get some feedback on what it would take to actually successfully do it in a way that's not as clunky.
Yeah. You were saying too that you guys do tours, which is really, really cool, that you actually sort of let people into your lair and show them, what goes on behind the scenes. What are some of the things that people learn on those tours that they find most surprising?
The number one thing that people are always surprised by is that chocolate is a fruit. Chocolate grows on trees. So a lot of folks are always surprised that chocolate is a fruit salad, as I like to say.
It's good for you.
Exactly, yes. We love to highlight, a lot of people, we grew up eating chocolate and we have zero clue where it comes from a lot of times. So, education is very near and dear to my heart. So that's something that I've really put a lot of effort into developing to be able to we do a lot of school tours where we want to teach kids, where does chocolate come from and how do you eat chocolate in a smart way? Chocolate gets a bad rap, but the idea is most of us are eating candy. we're eating just sugar with a little bit of cacao, and we're trying to educate people, like, when you make those decisions, here's what you want to look out for, what makes chocolate real, and what ingredients should you be looking for, and who are those people behind the chocolate and the cocoa fields. That's one of the things that's very important for us to bring forth all the effort. What do they do when they pick the fruits? How do they ferment it? How do they handle it post-harvest? That's one of the things we love to emphasize. And then we delve into hands-on how we actually make chocolate in-house, all the steps involved, and how labor-intensive. And then we always end with a nice little tasting, what I like to call Chocolate Snobbery 101, which is where we teach you how do you eat chocolate and how do you distinguish all the different flavors that come from chocolate.
Well, before we let you go, we want to remind everybody that coming up next week on May 2nd is National Truffle Day, so they can seek you out for truffles, right? What do you suggest that if somebody was going to get truffle? Oh, goodness gracious. What's in there, Carolina?
So this is our Winter in New York collection. So this is some of our favorite flavors from New York that we make in-house. So we have a strawberry cheesecake, we have hot cocoa, we have roasted hazelnuts, we have black and white cookie. So we do a lot of hand-painted bonbons. That's our New York collection. And then we also have our Summer in Miami, which is a combo of pastelito de guayaba. We've got
of course.
We've got mango. We've got all the great flavors of Miami put in a box. And we're actually offering a special discount for Canes on our website. If you use the discount code Canes, you'll get 15% off all our stuff. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Mother's Day's around the corner too. So we have Truffle Day, we have Mother's Day, and who the heck needs a special day to eat chocolate anyway, right?
Every day is a chocolate day.
It is. Carolina, it was awesome talking to you. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. So we have to look for you online and on Instagram too, right?
Absolutely. At Exquisito Chocolates.
Thank you. Take care and go
Canes.
You
too. Go Canes.